Gonna shoot up my hand to say that I've been waiting patiently for a new Dua Lipa album for the past 4 years. Future Nostalgia came through with its new disco swing and made pop fun again. It's one of the best pop records of the past decade, but Radical Optimism is not that. Hey neighbor, welcome back to the channel. I want to talk about the new Dua Lipa album, her third overall following the self-titled in 2017, Future Nostalgia 2020, right as COVID landed, and now in 2024, Radical Optimism. Notice how I'm trying to smile through my teeth right now? That's me trying to be radically optimistic when talking about this record, but realistically, I'm floating back down to earth like somebody just shot the air out of my balloon, because this album is mid. Mid in music gets tossed around more than a beach ball at a Nickelback concert, but if we're being honest, this album kind of does embody that term right down to its core. Let's rewind to see how we got here. Over the past few years, Dua's done a couple of collabs like Sweetest Pie with Megan Thee Stallion, which unfortunately was extremely tame and boring. It felt pretty uninspired to me. Of course, we had Dance the Night from the Barbie soundtrack officially closing the door on Future Nostalgia, and it was a lot of fun. I still find myself humming that song's melody, but it wasn't up to the standards of Future Nostalgia, but it was a song for a soundtrack, so I didn't think too deeply about it. Dua started writing in late 2022, early 2023. In the Zane Lowe interview she gave for this album, she talks about this record as if it's this entire mindset, like the whole album is really going to shift your perspective on how you see the world. And while I can say that that did happen with Future Nostalgia, because that album got me through COVID, y'all, okay? I'm talking dance parties in the bedroom just to stop from going insane. This album doesn't really have that degree of urgency, of attitude, of persistence, and risk-taking. One of the biggest things that Dua manifested regarding her third album was working with Kevin Parker. Kevin, of course, Tame Impala, pretty much the sole embodiment of that psychedelic pop sound that's really penetrated the mainstream over the past few years. And you know how they say don't meet your idols? I don't necessarily believe in that, but I will subscribe to the idea that maybe sometimes you're not meant to work with your idols because your styles just clash. On a fundamental level, I think that Dua's vocals, with the kind of synthetic, bassy approach that Kevin often takes, as do some of the other people that work on this album that are very talented, from Caroline, Danny, Tobias Jesso Jr., I think all of these people do have different styles, and they brought creativity to the table. It just got lost somewhere in the swirl of production and not knowing if Dua is the star or if the instrumental is. To set the record straight, Houdini was a flaming hot lead single. I love that track. It has such a charismatic, earwormy bass groove, in addition to the synthesizers just boiling over, Dua giving us so much attitude, just serving it up for days and hitting it out of the park with a bridge and an outro that is straight fire. Training Season was not an immediate love for me, but it really grew on me, and to the point where I cannot get that chorus out of my head, and I'm not really that mad about it. I do think it's a little bit more on the average side, but compared to some of the songs that we get into with the deep cuts, it makes it sound like a saint. Don't go twisting my words saying that I hate this record and that I think everything here is trash and that she's giving us nothing. It's just that when your third album is feeling a little bit more unsteady on its feet than your first album, Houston, we have a problem. After Houdini, I was definitely feeling concerned that of the 3 singles, the quality seemingly went down with each of those. We start off excellent with Houdini, and then good, maybe even a little bit of greatness on Training Season, and then Illusion, which just feels like club filler in a way. It's growing on me, and I do think that there's some really solid aspects to the production. There's a bounce in the hook, but it does feel like it's lacking an overall punch, just the KO that it really needed. This is a dance pop record that parades around like it's a little bit more psychedelic and different than it actually is. Radical Optimism actually opens with a really great song, and it finishes on one too. End of an era, opening us up, ushering in this new style for Dua, a little bit more focused on dance pop and letting go of the disco elements, and then closing on Happy For You, a genuinely heartfelt moment. I thought both of those tracks exuded a lot of maturity, some artistic growth. Unfortunately, it's what's squeezed inside the walls in between that disappointed me. Tracks like Falling Forever feature dynamite vocals from Dua. Go off. It sounds great, but it just kind of feels like fast food in the sense that it's like, okay, that was a quick craving that got satisfied, but the depth of the song, the galloping synths, it all feels heard, done, and seen before. I don't want to sound like I'm writing off the song automatically because it uses cliches. It's just the formula that's being followed is pretty obvious, and it doesn't do a ton in terms of the delivery, the packaging, the attitude to really make it hit. The track Whatcha Doing is the definition of filler. I really don't feel like I'll remember this song a week from now. French Exit has some nice ideas. It's just that the overall plan, despite some really solid instrumentation, a nice plumb bass groove, some drums that feel a little bit more authentic compared to some of the other tracks, it just doesn't, unfortunately, come together in an amalgamation that really makes a ton of sense. In defense of Radical Optimism, I do think that it ends on a bit of a solid run. Nothing extraordinary, but definitely a better finish than Future Nostalgia, which went out with Good in Bed and Boys Will Be Boys, the two worst songs on the album. I was pleasantly surprised with how connected I felt to the short track just over 2 minutes, Anything for Love. It's very understated, especially at first, but it's the definition of a good slow burn that just adds enough personality and difference to actually make a difference. Right after that, Maria features some really nice, crisp acoustic guitars, Dua selling the vocals and the entire mood of the song. And again, closing on Happy For You, one of the best songs on the album, so it's harder to complain there. Again, it's just like the indifference that I feel to much of the track listing. It's the inconsistency that plagues and brings down Radical Optimism. Ladies, I don't know what's going on as of late, but I don't know how many more disappointments I can take. Dua Lipa, Maggie Rogers, Lizzie McAlpine, Taylor Swift, some of my faves out there just putting out albums that feel like lesser versions of themselves. And I hate to say that out loud to give credence to it, but it's been happening for like the past 5 weeks, and I'm very confused and also very concerned for Billie Eilish. Oh great, look what I've done now. I made Billie cry. This isn't quite pop gone wrong territory, but arguably you could say that being boring and forgettable is almost just as bad, if not worse, as being outright bad, and I do think this is one of the more disappointing listens that I've had this year so far. Thus concludes my review of Radical Optimism. I'm gonna give this album a light 3 out of 5. What did you guys think of Dua Lipa's new album? Pop or flop? Take to the comments. Let me know your opinion and any thoughts that you had on mine. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications. Check out more of my Dua Lipa videos on screen now, and I'll see you soon on Beyond ARTV.